This is Carl with your Consus Livestock update. Today's Monday, July the 28th. I'm going to follow up after several of the stories. We've had, odds and ends of stories. We're going to put them all together here, especially after getting the USDA reports that came out. And bottom line, I'm going to start cattle on feed and cattle inventory reports pretty much came out in line with expectations. U.S. cattle herd down on the year. We knew it. The overall biannual cattle inventory coming in down 1%, pretty much as trade expected. Two things that jumped out. The monthly on-feed report, cattle placements down 8% from a year ago. That trade was only expecting a 2% decline. I thought it was going to be a little lower myself. We've cut off the Mexican imports, and we just don't have the feeder cattle out there. Stocker cattle numbers picking up though. Interesting to see some more cattle going into the pasture. That demand has picked up. But regardless, the on-feed numbers pretty much as expected. So we didn't see a huge reaction to it in the market. The total cattle inventory, the one thing that jumped out at me in all of it is a 150,000 head increase to the U.S. dairy herd from a year ago. Um, a little surprising, but I think we saw this coming, or at least we knew it was a possibility. Maybe a little over a year ago, we had dairy farmers breeding back their cows, and even some beef farmers. We saw a lot of crossbreeding. We saw a lot of beef cows bred with dairy bulls, and we saw dairy cows bred with beef bulls. So we could see which way we wanted to take those animals. Obviously, it appears more of them went into the beef supply. Um, so, we did see that pick up a little bit. It cuts down on your beef cattle and your feeder market there. So, like I said, wasn't a total surprise, but maybe that was the only really curveball we saw there. Um, we did get the also the cold storage report came out last week. We did see a drop in red meat supplies. Not too surprising, really. We expected that. We've seen slow slaughter runs here lately, and we haven't seen the big imports. So to see that dwindle, not too surprising for this month, I should say. There are some concerns over our trade going forward, and I'll hit on that in a second here. But one of the things about the cold storage dropping a little bit, packers are not pushing their bids right now. Packers are okay to let that cold storage dip a little bit and let their inventories decline somewhat. They're not pushing hard for cattle to process at today's high values. They're just not. Matter of fact, most packing plants across the U.S. running at minimal chain speeds right now, right at what the union obligation is. Not going to push for any more. Just the cattle aren't there, so you're going to pay a lot of money for a little bit of movement. And the second one, there is more concern over the consumer side of it and what retail beef consumption will be, especially as we get to the tail end of the grilling season here. Next big push for red meat supplies will be Labor Day. And can be a huge push for a grilling weekend, but a lot of times it's not as big as Fourth of July or Memorial Day. Um, One thing we're watching on the global side that could impact and I feel will impact beef supply is the potential Brazilian tariffs. The 50% tariff that we've talked about on Brazil, some secondary tariffs we could see due to our issues with Russia. Bottom line is the United States imports about 22% of its beef supply from Brazil. A quick breakdown of the numbers. Bottom line, the United States produces in a typical year, we're down a little bit this year, but 26 million, 25 to 27 million pounds of beef, I would say right in there on the average. We import about 5 billion pounds. So you're talking about 30 to 31 billion pounds of beef supply in the United States. We consume domestically 30 billion pounds annually. So we got about 1 to 2 billion pounds that we export. and that is prime beef. We export prime beef, and a lot of that's going out as steaks. We import lower grade beef out of Brazil, out of choice, select, and a lot of it's trimmings. It's not whole beef, it's trimmings, and it goes into the U.S. ground beef supply. We cut that off, and bottom line is we're cutting out 20% of our supply. 230 million tons is what the United States imported from Brazil on them beef trimmings in 2024. So it's not a small volume. I am very concerned over what that would do to the retail side, to the consumer side. Sirloin steaks already, at 12, $13 a pound. Hamburger getting up there pretty top heavy right now. You add even more to it with an uncertain consumer outlook, and it does not bode well for the industry. I'm not saying we're going to totally fall apart. We're not going to see demand destruction in beef, I don't believe, but we could see limited consumer demand going forward if these prices continue to rally from where they're at. Aside from that, the path of least resistance in cattle is steady to upwards. Hogs trying to follow. We are sitting at all-time highs on both contracts, feeders and fats. Stay hedged up. That's the only real advice I can give in a market like this. We rally, and then we have big profit taking, and then we rally and we see more. So stay hedged up. Don't sit in this market and think that we're going to have this last forever. It's not a security blanket. I can guarantee you that. Like I said, consumers will decide how much further this rally has to go. I fully believe that. Until then, thank you for your time.